Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the Buffalo Wings. We have made it to the first day of summer in 2048, and it's also draft day for Major League Baseball. Our Buffalo Wings are having a potentially historic season, a 54-15 record here on June 21st, with a sizable 15-game lead over the Atlanta Braves in the National League East. Incredible pitching staff thus far this year, coupled with an excellent offense, has meant great success on the field. And we're going to try to find some players who will help us have great success on the field a decade or two from now in this draft. And appreciate those of you who took a look at some of the prospects from the end of our last episode. We're picking 35th in the draft. And I agree with the broad assessment. I was surprised to see Ben Drake available. Think that it's just incredible luck for us at pick number 35 that a five-star starting pitching prospect has fallen that far. Our scouting director actually recommends Nate Dandelay, a left fielder out of Phillips Academy who's committed to Oklahoma State. Has some negative personality traits, does have some good home run power potential, and could draw some walks. Not a great fielder, not a lot of speed. Not going to happen. If we move to the pitchers, though, our scouting director does recommend Hate the Drake as our first selection. He's looking for over slot at this point, but we've got plenty of money to spend this year. And as we touched upon at the end of our last episode, it doesn't look like there's going to be an incredibly robust market of players on the trade block who will fit our needs. And at 54-15, we don't really have a lot of needs to fill either. So we are not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. Ben Drake, to me, seems like an excellent prospect for number 35 overall. He's durable, good stamina, incredible at holding on runners, a lot of very positive personality traits. He's not even 18 years old, and he's already throwing in the mid-90s. He's a ground ball pitcher with ground ball or pitcher type, with really good movement potentially on his pitches, so he'll likely not give up a lot of home runs. We expect him to have above average control if he reaches his potential, and his stuff could be potentially excellent with a 4 to 5 pitch arsenal most likely. Kind of interesting that his fastball looks like it's potentially going to be his worst pitch. But as long as the slider and the sinker come along and he develops either the curveball or the changeup, he should be a top-end starting pitcher, certainly someone who could be a 2 or a 3 starter easily. And if he really develops the full 5-pitch arsenal to its full potential, I think he could certainly be an ace. So we are not going to think about this anymore. We are going to meet the Drake's demand, pay him over slot, and make a simple, easy first round selection. Moving on to our second round selection, we'll take a look at who's available. Sam Girardo is a guy that we talked about last episode. Hugh Adkins, catcher, like his defense. Don't necessarily know that there's enough of a bat there. And then Jeff Taylor, a reliever, are the only over 3-star potential players left. Taylor looks like he could be a solid right-handed reliever. Probably not someone we're going to pick in the second round, though. And it feels kind of lazy to do what we're going to do here in the second round, but our scout recommends Sam Girardo, and Sam Girardo is the highest potential player on the board. That combination of potentially 65 contact and 65 home run power definitely stands out compared to anyone else who is still on the board. Don't love some of the personality traits, don't love the lack of speed, don't love that he's a barely competent corner outfielder. But the bat still is one that, if it fully develops, could be interesting. So we're going to go ahead and draft Mr. Girardo here in round number 2. And in the third round, we're going to go with a decent catching prospect, Jake Connor. Looks like his defensive ability could be a bit above average. Looks like his bat could maybe be a little bit above average. Worst case scenario, with good coaching and a high investment in development, both of which we have in our farm system, he could be a really nice backup catcher, and there's certainly a possibility he could become more than that. So we'll go ahead and draft him as well, although I have to be on the other screen to draft Mr. Connor. Fourth round, we are going to come back to the reliever, Jeff Taylor, that we mentioned, the highest upside player left. He's really a pure reliever, but he is a reliever with good stamina, good at holding on runners, so I think he could be a pretty interesting arm for the back of a bullpen. So we are going to go with Jeff Taylor here in the fourth round. And at the end of the last episode, we highlighted that there were a fair number of players who had pretty good contact speed combinations that were available, and a few of them still are, and we're going to go with Jace Guti here, a center fielder, plus contact, plus gap power, excellent speed, decent home run power, not going to strike out an insane amount. He's not going to draw a lot of walks, which is not optimal for a player whose profile otherwise suggests possibly batting him at first or second in the order if he does fully develop. But as a fifth rounder, we're certainly willing to take a flyer on Mr. Guti. And we didn't do anything exotic in the final 15 rounds of the draft, so we will have to pay up a bit to get Jace Guti signed. Since we've got money to spend, we're going to just go ahead and meet his demand, try to get all 5 of these guys signed. If it works out, you can see we'll still have a bit of money to potentially take on some contracts over the next 6 weeks or so until we get to the trade deadline, but probably not a critical need for us to add a lot of talent with the fact that we've got a pretty solid team already, and we're still waiting on the guy we thought would be our starting shortstop, as well as a solid young outfielder that we picked up in the Rule 5 draft to recover from injuries to potentially bolster our roster in the second half of the season. And we've now got 4 of our 5 top 5 picks signed. Jeff Taylor, the reliever, just joined the team, so the only guy we're still waiting on is the young catcher, Jake Connor, our third-round pick. The Rule 5 acquisition, Jeff House, just suffered a setback. Going to be at least 8 weeks until he's ready to play again. Actually not the worst-case scenario for us, because that means it's probably late August when he's ready to start a rehab assignment. We could stick him in AAA for a week or 2, and then we'll have a spot on the roster with September roster expansion to get him some major league service time with us this season, without having to make a difficult decision about perhaps cutting one of our other outfielders. And we've made it to the All-Star break, and absolutely incredible first half of the season for the Buffalo Wings. 72-17 record, still a winning percentage of over .800 on the season. We've extended our lead in the National League East to 22.5 games at the All-Star break over the Atlanta Braves. St. Louis Cardinals continue to have an incredible season at 62-27, but they're 10 games behind us. Arturo Casares is tied for the National League lead in homers. Jim Reichert continues to lead the National League in runs batted in. Niabaya Vidale continues to lead the league in ERA. Danny Black looks well poised with 15 wins to lead the league in wins for the second time in his 3-year major league career. Joey Bills, in his first year as a member of our rotation, has 12 wins. Chris McClintock tied for second with 26 saves, and Nehemiah Vidale is third in the National League among pitchers with a 4.4 WAR. So plenty of excellent pitching performances. We'll find out whether they were rewarded with all-star appearances shortly, Our 72-17 record is 4 games higher than Pythagorean expectations. That 20-6 record in one-run games is probably not sustainable. Although, to be fair, that 20-6 record in one-run games is still 40 percentage points below our overall winning percentage, so who knows. Ranked first in the National League in runs scored, and we are in the top 3 in every offensive category in the National League. And we rank first in the National League in runs allowed, and we are first in every pitching category in the National League except for strikeouts, where we're second. First in defensive efficiency, second in zone rating, third in stolen bases, and seventh in base running. So just a team that has really been firing on all cylinders this year, as you would suspect, with a 72-17 record through the first 89 games of the season. Take a look at what the All-Star voters and the others who chose on the rosters thought about that, and both Joey Bills, Danny Black, and Nehemiah Vidale, all 3 of the starting pitchers we mentioned, named to the All-Star team, along with our stopper Floyd Auclair and our closer Chris McClintock. So 5 pitchers on the All-Star team. Our new catcher, Bobby Huntington, All-Star for us. Interestingly, the guy we traded away for him, Juan Ramirez, is an All-Star in the Los Angeles for the Dodgers, so that's interesting. Ramiro Medina, All-Star at second base for us. Arturo Casares, All-Star in left field. Once again, interestingly, our first baseman, Jim Reichert, who is on pace, as we talked about, to lead the National League in runs batted in for a 3rd consecutive season, is snubbed again from the All-Star team. A bit interesting. Our old shortstop, Jaheim Lawal, with the Cubs, named an All-Star. Like his glove, if he hadn't signed a somewhat long-term contract with the Cubs, might be someone to think about trading for if he could have him for cheap, but probably not going to work given that he is injured, and it's also a longer commitment. But when all was said and done, 8 All-Stars from the Buffalo Wings, so pretty solid representation, and I would hope that Mr. Reichert views that as a snub. 266 average, 17 homers, as we mentioned, a league best 71 ribbies, 118 WRC plus, so certainly not an exceptional overall offensive player, but I would be hard-pressed to imagine that there is a player in the history of baseball who has led the league in runs batted in 3 consecutive seasons and only been an All-Star one of those years. And we're still a week and a half before the trade deadline. We've kind of looked at the trade block, and there's really nothing that's going to move the needle for our team. 75-18 record, so clearly a pretty high hurdle to be a difference maker who's going to really change the trajectory of this team. We'll continue to look at things over the next 10 days and investigate opportunities of players who might not even be on the trade block, see if we can come up with something interesting to do. But I have a feeling it may be a very rare for our Buffalo Wings trade deadline with no transactions. And we've simmed ahead another week. Unless we happen to have a crazy injury, I don't think we're going to do anything. We have kind of searched all middle infielders and shortstops looking for someone who we think could be a bit of a difference maker. And I just don't think there's anyone out there. And positively, Juan Palomo, who had kind of been struggling through the first half of the year, has his batting average up to 278 now, despite being an everyday player. So he's making a bit of a push to keep that starting shortstop role, even when Mr. Fuchs is healthy enough to play. Given his range, I tend to think we'll give Fuchs the opportunity because he's definitely a better defensive shortstop. Palomo will certainly be the one playing against left-handed pitching, but Fuchs is also getting close to beginning a rehab assignment, just a couple weeks away at this point. So again, unless we have some catastrophic injury over the next 4 or 5 days, probably just going to hold tight. We're 80-19. There's really not a lot that we can do to improve this team at this point. And more importantly than that, I just don't think there's any real compelling opportunities out there for us to improve. And we're past the trade deadline into the month of August. Juan Toledo was just named the hitter of the month for July. 368 average with 12 homers and 23 ribbies on the year, now hitting 296, 22 homers, 56 runs driven in. So he's having an excellent season, even though he did begin the year on the IL for the first couple of weeks of the season. 22-game lead for us here on August 1st on the Braves. The winning percentage has finally dipped below 800, and we are 10.5 up on the Cardinals for the best record in baseball. Casares leading the league in homers. Reichert now second in ribbies. Ramiro Medina, the second baseman, is third in batter war, having a nice all-around season. Nehemiah Vidale has fallen to second in the league in ERA behind the excellent Ernesto Zambrana of the Giants. Danny Black still on 15 wins, still 2 up on Bills and Howie Frazier. Chris McClintock now leading the league in saves, and Nehemiah Vidale is third in the league in pitcher war. So continue to have a pretty impressive performance from our Buffalo Wings. Team statistics, still first in the National League in runs scored and still first in the National League in runs allowed. So as we get ready for the last less than 60 games of the year over these final 2 months, the goal is just to keep this team healthy and hopefully get Josh Fuchs back and healthy and into the starting lineup so we can hopefully bolster our shortstop position defensively and give our team a little more versatility and quality as we prepare for a attempt at a repeat and an attempt at a 4th World Series championship in 5 seasons for our Buffalo Wings. And we've made it to mid-August, 93-25 record. Josh Fuchs has not done well in his week-plus rehab assignment in AAA Albany, hitting .091 down there. But I don't know that I would think with a week-plus to shake off the rust, there's not really much point to keeping him down there any longer. Also a situation where Juan Palomo is banged up. Only one more day at this point. But we are going to send Juan Acevedo, the youngster, not that young, I guess. He's almost 26, down to AAA. He's been kind of our second utility infielder this year. You can see just 18 at-bats on the season. And he is a player who we picked up in a trade with Colorado a couple of years ago. Still could get a little bit of polishing perhaps at the AAA level in terms of his ability to play some of those positions. So we're going to give him an opportunity to do that, demote him to AAA Albany, bring up Mr. Fuchs. And interestingly, Palomo has been really hitting well this second half of the year. He's got the average up to 302, even though he's playing against both lefties and righties pretty regularly. And the batting average against right-handers is surprisingly 312 compared to 264 against lefties, because his hitting profile is certainly stronger against left-handed pitching. So probably has gotten a little bit fortunate this year. That BABIP of 348 against right-handed pitching is probably not something that is sustainable. But we're going to give Fuchs a chance to play against righties, Palomo a chance to play against lefties and contribute a little more off of the bench. The point is to have this team healthy and well as of the beginning of October, and kind of want to have a better sense of what we have and don't have with Fuchs. Kind of know what Palomo is, a good solid offensive player who can play a competent shortstop. Want to see if maybe we get a little more out of Fuchs offensively over this last month and a half of the season than we have in previous years. And a little public service announcement here to probably not stress too much about the statistics that players put up on rehab assignments. Fuchs, 2 for 22 in 7 games in AAA Albany on the rehab assignment. Promptly goes 2 for 5 with a double and a run batted in his first game at the major league level. And he actually, striking out in 40% of his at-bats, was materially better than down in AAA, where he had struck out in about 65% of his at-bats. And we've made it to September roster expansion, and amazingly, anything is possible for the Buffalo Wings this year. 103-29 record here with exactly 30 games to go. If we play 500 ball the rest of the way, we will tie the 118 wins that we had in 2040, which is the most in a regular season in Major League history, given that we've played 700 ball every month of the season so far. Hopefully we can do much better than that. And with a 780 winning percentage, we do have a chance of eclipsing the 763 winning percentage for a season that was put up by the 1906 Chicago Cubs. So we could, by pretty much any measure, have the greatest regular season in baseball history, depending on how this team performs over the last month of the season. That said, the main goal is to remain healthy. Taking a look at our pitching staff, we did bring up both Mike Jaramillo and Chris Warrior, 2 guys who we brought up last September and really didn't have an opportunity to pitch much or at all in the majors this year until today. The pitching staff has just been incredible. It's been healthy all year, and you can see our starters 15-3, 16-2, 17-3, 17-4, and 13-2. Highest ERA is 3.21 by Jim Coles. The relievers possibly even better. Everyone in the bullpen has an ERA of under 3, except for Mike George, who we picked up off the waiver wire, and he still has a solid 3.60 ERA with 12.3 strikeouts per 9 innings in a relatively modest workload for him. Position-wise, brought up 2 players as well. Jeff House, the Rule 5 acquisition, had him on a rehab assignment in AAA. We'll see what he can do in the majors over the last month of the season. And then David Sandoval, who did really well for us, hit 375 and 40 at-bats before Juan Toledo come back from that injury. Had him down in Albany the rest of this year, and he was impressive. 316 average, 41 homers, 102 ribbies. Learned how to play first base at a pretty competent level, so he's now pretty up to speed as far as the positions he really has any capability of playing at the major league level. He's going to be certainly pushing for a full-time roster spot next year. Don't know how much playing time either House or Sandoval will get over this last month of the season, but they will get some at-bats and some playing time in the majors, and we'll see what they can do with that opportunity. Despite the fact that we do have a chance to have a truly historic regular season, the main goal is just to get this team to the playoffs through these last 30 games healthy. So hopefully luck will be on our sides and we'll be able to do that. And 19 games left in the season. Our record is 112-31, so we're 7 wins away from eclipsing the 118 wins that we put together 8 years ago, the most in the history of the game. And we will need to go 12-7 or better over the last 19 games to get to 124 wins, which would leave us with the best winning percentage since the 1906 Chicago Cubs put up that 763 winning percentage. If we get to 124, we'll be a bit better than that. And as I mentioned, though, the primary goal is just to keep this team healthy. 2 weeks into September, Nobody's even nicked up, so we just need to continue that for another 3 weeks. And another week in the books, we went 4-2, so that means we've got to go 8-5 the rest of the way, or better, to achieve our goal. We've got 3 games home against Pittsburgh this week, and then 3 home against Atlanta, and then we'll finish off the season with 3 in New York at the Mets, followed by 4 back at home against the Phillies. So in terms of the number of home games we have, the schedule is pretty favorable. Take a look at the standings here. 31.5 game lead on the Braves in the division, and we are 15 games ahead of the Cardinals for the best record in baseball. Casares is leading the league in home runs still, but in a very tough battle with Castanon and Meza just one behind him. Reichert with 125 ribbies is 11 free of Castanon, and Rogelio Moreno, he leads him by 14. So it does look like Reichert's got a pretty good chance at leading the National League in ribbies a 3rd straight year. Second baseman Ramiro Medina, living up to that big contract extension we gave him this offseason, tied for 2nd in the National League with a 6.3 pitcher WAR. Nehemiah Vidale, 3rd in the league with a 2.03 ERA. Joey Bills tied for the league lead with 19 wins. Chris McClintock tied for 2nd with 42 saves. And Vidale, 2nd in the National League with a 7.3 WAR as a pitcher. Ernesto Zambrana of the Giants, a ridiculous 10.9 pitcher WAR here with a couple weeks left. A 1.40 ERA and 346 strikeouts over 232 innings. He is a player that we looked at many moons ago when he was an international amateur free agent. Thought he was likely to be a superstar, and he certainly has become one. And we just completed an excellent 5-1 homestand, so 7 games to go, 3 at the Mets to finish off September, and then, of course, 4 at home against Philly. So with 7 games to go at this point, we've already shattered the 118 win mark we put up 8 years ago, 121-34 record. So even if we only go 3-4 over these last 7 games, we will surpass the 1906 Cubs for the best winning percentage in MLB history. And as we head into October, we won 3 in a row against the Mets, so we've already clinched the greatest regular season in baseball history, 124-34 record. Still have 4 games left at home against Philadelphia. Ishmael Velasco, 380 batting average with 5 homers, 20 ribbies, and 24 runs scored, the National League Hitter of the Month. They're trying to scare me. We keep having relatively minor injuries. The excellent left-handed reliever Danny Kashuk was day-to-day at the beginning of this week. Floyd Auclair just showed up on the injury list, but fortunately it's back stiffness, 2-day impact, so we are just going to ensure that he is benched for the next couple days so that doesn't become a bigger injury. So 4 games left to just get through and remain healthy, and then we can worry about staying healthy throughout the playoffs and hopefully avoiding having one of the most disappointing season in sports history if we're unable to win the title. I would think a regular season like this would have to measure up with the New England Patriots when they were pursuing the perfect season about 15 years ago, and they unfortunately for them came up just short against the New York Giants in the Super Bowl. I'd say that with this team that's likely to finish the year with 126, 127 wins, anything less than an eventual World Series title will feel quite hollow. And the regular season is over. A MLB record 127-35 record for the Buffalo Wings with a record 784 winning percentage. Finished off playing really well, won 3 in a row and 9 out of our last 10. The Cardinals had a ridiculous 107-55 season, and they were still 20 games behind our Buffalo Wings for the best record in baseball. Arturo Casares did end up leading the National League with 44 homers. Jim Riker leads the National League in ribbies for a third straight year with 135. Ramiro Medina ended up second in batter war at 6.6. Nehemiah Vidale was third in the NL with a 183 ERA. Joey Bills was a 21-game winner to lead the league. Jim Lance also 120. Chris McClintock led the league with 49 saves. Nehemiah Vidale, 20-game winner as well. And he was second in the National League with an 8.3 pitcher WAR. So 3 20-game winners in a season is a pretty ridiculous achievement. Not what the Baltimore Orioles were doing 50-ish years ago in real-life baseball, but still a pretty crazy feat for 2048 pretend baseball. Taking a look at team statistics on the year, we did maintain a winning percentage over 700 every month of the season. Our worst month was August, where our winning percentage was only 724. Actually, that's not true. Our worst month was June, when our winning percentage was only 703. Ended up first in the National League with 900 runs scored. And you can see we led the National League in every offensive category except for walks, where we were third in steals, third in base running. First in the National League with a ridiculous 470 runs allowed, a team ERA of 2.65, led the National League in every pitching category except for BABIP in strikeouts, where we were second in defensive efficiency, and fifth in zone rating. So this is a team that has just fired on all cylinders all season long, and we are a 8 or 10 cylinder vehicle, not a little 4-cylinder engine, and it's been a very rewarding season on paper. But now we will need to move to the playoffs, and we're going to have home field advantage for as long as we are alive in the playoffs. The team's completely healthy, completely ready to go. Just a matter of picking what we want our 26-man roster for the playoffs to look like, and then hopefully having those players execute over the next 3 or 4 weeks as they have over the first 6 months of this season. And we'll find out how this magical run for the Buffalo Wings concludes in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.